That's funded index universal life specialist. I've been in the insurance and financial services industry for 11 plus years, from property and casualty sales to independent adjuster, insurance appraisals, public adjusting, life agent. I've done a lot, but because I know a lot. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to be reacting to Doug Andrews' video. Should I participate in my 401k? As you see down there, Doug Andrews is a pioneer in the industry as it relates to life insurance and innovative ways to structure these things the way it benefits you the best. So let's see how this works out. Let's see what Doug has to show us.
Welcome back. In this episode, we're going to address the question, should I participate in a 401k? Well, the short, sweet answer is no. Now, people get shocked when I say that. That's not a hard and fast rule.
Hey, now, so Doug, he does this at the beginning of his videos where he basically states the problem, what has people feeling lost, and I forget how he says it, but what leaves them feeling isolated, fearful. He asks the question, he answers the question, and then he gets into it of why he has this opinion.
As you're going to see, but it depends. The problem is you're going to learn in this video, this particular educational episode, that usually people get duped into putting too much money into an IRA or a 401k. So I'll explain why.
Hey, some of y'all dance and move around to your favorite theme songs, right? For this is a story all about how I move like this to Doug Andrews' intro music because of all of the stuff he's taught me based off his curriculums in the classes I went through. But that's just my little thing. But let's see what he got.
I'm Doug Andrew, and I've been a financial strategist, retirement planning specialist for more than 45 years. I've noticed that the government loves to tax your money, especially at the time in life when you can afford it the least. But most people just sort of get duped, I think, into putting money into yet to be taxed IRAs and 401ks, thinking that deferring saves them money. Now, there's a few synonyms for defer. It also means to postpone, and it also means to procrastinate. When has procrastinating paying tax ever come out ahead for people? Not very often. Way back when I was helping a lot of people look at alternatives to 401ks and IRAs, I was talking about this very concept on an interview in New York. Just a little while later, there was a cover story in Time magazine titled, "Why It's Time to Retire the 401k and do something better instead." So I'm going to share with you what I think is far better, but this is because back
Some of y'all mama
in 2008, for example, this happened.
Some of your mothers and fathers, if they knew that you were listening to this, they would say it was blasphemy. Because like you said, the 401ks really did make sense at one point, and to some people they still do, but depending on your situation, maybe they don't.
In 2001 to 2003 after the 9/11 terrorist attacks. But people saw their retirement savings nest eggs dwindle in value 40% twice in the decade from 2000 to 2010. That's a big issue, market volatility. But I think the number one reason why you shouldn't participate is most people are not in a lower tax bracket when they retire. So what was that all about? People put their money aside into something that's going to grow to this big nest egg, hopefully, for some future perceived unknown advantage, and then withdraw your money when most people believe that down the road taxes will be higher. That doesn't make sense. But in this article, it said the 401k is a financial flop, a rotten repository for our retirement reserves. I hadn't used that strong of language in.
I was just about to say that. Hey, I didn't say it. Whoever the author is for Time magazine said it. A rotten depository. And what did Doug Andrews say? Doug, what did he say a little bit before that? How one of the synonyms, or one of the things that means the same as defer, which is what most 401ks do, which is the traditional 401k. Maybe he's going to get to the Roth 401k, but I can get to that if he doesn't. But the traditional 401k, the school of thought is that if you defer these taxes into the future, it'll be best for you, because when you retire, your tax rate is it has no choice but to be lower than what your tax rate is now, because you'll be retired and you, quote unquote, won't be bringing in as much income. Therefore, your tax rate will be lower. So you would prefer to pay taxes in the future as opposed to pay taxes now at a high rate. Historically, taxes have never gone down. It reminds me of a story when I moved to Atlanta. I lived in Atlanta for 4 years, and that was the first time I ever rented. Other than that, I moved straight from my house to my first home. I bought my first house at 22, but I had never rented before then. So I go and I go through the whole process of getting approved. Look to a bunch of different places, and the guy that's my leasing agent, he's we're signing all the documents. He's going over everything, and he said, by the way, there is a chance that based off the market that your insurance rate, I mean, not your insurance, but your rent might increase. I said, it might increase or it will increase. He said, it might increase. It might increase depending on the market. I say, so if it might increase, is there a chance, depending on the market, that it might go down? He says, it never goes down. He said, no, it never goes down. And guess what? That might became definitely. Every year that I lived in Atlanta, and every place that I stayed during the times that I was there, it always ran up at renewal. And that's the way taxes have been working. Taxes are historically have only gone up. So even if relatively the taxes that are going to be in the future are relative to what your taxes are now, they're still going to be higher based off historical data. And a lot of people say you can't look at past events in order to determine future events. Then what else do you have to look at? Are they saying that you should just concoct what you think might happen in the future and pay no attention to what's been happening in the past? And what's been happening in the past is taxes only increase. But that's not even the only thing. When the taxes increase, even though it's going to increase relatively based off inflation and based off what taxes do and what taxes does, even you think that your taxes are going to be lower, but chances are by the time you retire, you will have paid off your house. That's one tax credit that you won't get anymore. You won't be depositing no more into retirement funds. That's another tax credit you won't be anymore. And since you did pay off your house, you're not able to write off that interest. You're not able to write off as many discounts as you used to have. So your marginal tax rate is going to be a lot higher based off of those factors. So that's what he's getting to, basically saying, even though the school of thought is invest in a traditional 401k and defer your taxes, aka procrastinate your taxes, it makes sense because your tax rate should be lower. Historically, it hasn't been like that. And ask your grandparents if their tax rate is lower or if it's the same or higher. Let's go.
That interview in New York just a few months earlier. Well, I also found that other articles would come out in the Wall Street Journal about how to do something better than a 401k. In fact, I think it was in 2017 in January, the Wall Street Journal came out with a headline, "Why the Original Champions of the 401k Lament the Day They Ever Came Up with That Idea." Because you're not in a
lament the day. All right, so that might be our vocabulary word for the day. Lament. Okay, we have lament. Lament spelled Lament, a passionate expression of grief and sorrow. So Doug is saying that someone will have a passionate expression of grief and sorrow for the day that they made the decision to do this.
a lower tax bracket. You really didn't save taxes at the end of the day. So let's talk about why that is the case, because as I mentioned many times, when people come to me with yet to be taxed IRAs or 401ks, I usually ask, were you planning your retirement or Uncle Sam's? It's because when people retire, if they have $1 million nest egg, they think that's all their money. No, only about 2/3 of that is their money. See, the government, Uncle Sam has a permanent tax lien on your IRAs or 401ks. And that's why I always would ask my clients, my heavens, are you planning your retirement or Uncle Sam's? So let's talk about the pros and the cons, okay? Qualified plans are qualified with who? Okay, the government, okay, and the Internal Revenue Code. And traditional accounts like IRAs, 401ks have pros and cons, but let's look at the cons first of all. Sometimes I will quip, hey, if pro and con are opposite, maybe Congress is the opposite of progress. Okay, and I think that's true when they get
DA with the dad jokes. If con is the opposite of pro, is Congress the opposite of progress? Dad jokes. He's not only a wealth strategist, folks, IUL specialist, he's a dad joke specialist too.
get together the tax revenuers. Now, over here, what are the pros of an IRA or 401k? You get tax deductible funding. In an IRA, you get to deduct it. With a 401k, you put in pre-tax dollars. So we have this illusion, ooh, I have more money working for me. No, it doesn't matter what it grows to. The government gets 1/3 of every dime, and they're using you as their savings bond. They get 1/3 of everything you're going to make. So what a great partnership is.
So when you put money in a qualified plan, such as an IRA, 401k, etc. Also, I think for teachers, you have 403bs. Based off the permanent tax lien that Uncle Sam, the United States government has, they get 1/3. So whatever you do, they get 1/3. Whatever decisions that you're thinking they're making, wise or unwise in the government, as it relates to your tax dollars, as it relates to policies, as it relates to everything, what he's saying is if you're depositing into these qualified plans, the government has a permanent tax lien of 1/3 of the growth, 33%. So if you make 100, they get $33. If you make 100,000, they get 33,000. And what does that leave you with? 67,000.
Is that you get tax deferred growth of your money and you think, oh, that grows to more. Yeah, but you don't choose investments based upon which ones grow the most. You use the investments that'll generate the most at the time in life you're going to need the money the most, after taking into consideration taxes and inflation. Now, sometimes employers will offer matching. So you might have possible matching. So you put in $1, your employer matches 50 cents on that. You got $1.50 working for you. Oh, all they did was cover your tax because you pull out that $1.50 and you pay 1/3 in tax. Now you still have your dollar. So that's nice of your employer to do that. The big problem that I have seen my entire career is people put in more than they're being matched. In other words, if your company matches you 50 cents up to the first 6%, I see people putting in the maximum up to 9, 10% or whatever they can. No, I wouldn't do that. There's no advantage to doing that. I would only participate up to what they match you. And many times, not even take advantage of a match if the rate of return on that portfolio at your employer and what you're doing is not that great. The match isn't worth it. But a match just covers your tax. So what are the cons? It's fully taxed as you use it in retirement. Every dime you pull out shows up on your 1040 tax return. You must use it up. What does that mean? See, if you don't start withdrawing money, at least by age 70 and a half, because the government, Uncle Sam, has been waiting for that tax revenue. And if you don't start taking out what they require, it's called a required minimum distribution based on your life expectancy, there's a 50% penalty. I said 50%. If you're supposed to pull out 50,000 out of $1 million nest egg and you don't, the penalty is 25,000.
All right. So what is he saying here? He's saying that, okay, if you decide to put into this account and your employer is matching you, that's good because that match would at least cover the taxes that you're being taxed on the whole thing. However, if the actual portfolio isn't performing that well, the juice might not be worth the squeeze, is what he's saying. And then as it relates to that match, you have even after you retire, at a certain age, you have to do a minimum withdrawal from it. And if you do not, so they're already taxing you 30%, a third of the money that's coming out of there. But if you don't pull from it at a certain age, which at this age it's 70 and a half, and these are one of these index numbers. So by the time you retire, that number may or may not be different. But if you don't pull from it at a certain age, they then penalize you 50%. So now some people might be on Medicare, Medicaid, or some different type of things to where they have to keep their income at a certain amount. So therefore, they have to minimize what's coming in. And what if that's a part of your strategy to not pull from that? And maybe that's a part of your strategy to have that as a something for your funeral or something for your dependents once you're gone. But they're saying, no, we need that. We need that. You've been a good worker for us all this time. You've been putting away a good portion of your money, planning for your retirement. But don't forget, we have a permanent tax lien on that thing, and we need that money.
$1,000 on top of the tax. You must use it up, and the remainder that is in your account when you die is potentially taxed twice upon passing to non-spousal heirs. Your spouse can get it, but they're not getting it tax-free. They have to pay tax on it when they go to use it. Same thing with your children. But if you have an estate tax, it can be potentially taxed twice. So I do not feel that the pros are worth the cons. There are far better ways to save and accumulate.
And everything in life has pros and cons. Everything in life has benefits and disadvantages, even your relationships. There are good things about these people. There are bad things about these people. But what you're supposed to do as a reasonable person is outweigh the pros and cons. Yes, I got tax deferment. Yes, I have possible matching from my employer. Yes, my tax contributions are tax deductible, but is it worth it that it's fully taxed? Is it worth it that I have to use X amount at a certain time? Is it worth it that my surviving spouse, my beneficiaries, will be taxed and potentially double taxed? Is that just weigh out the pros and cons? Is it worth it? We haven't
money
made
for retirement, so I'm going to share a story with you. So you ready for a story? Oftentimes I would tell my clients a little ditty: good, better, best. Never let it rest till good gets better and better gets best. I would say that an IRA or 401k used to be a good way to go, but a far cry from the best way, in my opinion. A Roth, in other episodes, I explained why a Roth is a step in the right direction. It's probably better than a traditional IRA or 401k, especially if you think future tax rates are going to be higher. I'll take a Roth any day. But the best is not an IRA or 401k or a Roth. I've never owned an IRA or 401k or a Roth. Never will. My favorite vehicle is what I refer to as the laser fund. And that's why I would encourage you watch the episode where I talk about that in several different educational videos. But let me give you a story about two school teachers. Both the husband and the wife are school teachers. And they came to me at age...
Story time. And what I like about what Doug does is he likes to talk to the left and the right side of the brain. The left side, the side that needs data and information, the right that learns from data and information, the right side that learns from stories and examples. So he talked to the left side of the brain with the pros and the cons. Now he's about to give you the story to help it stick. And the way that I like to describe this, how do you know if you're, well, this isn't a full proof, but one of the ways you can tell if you know if you're left or right brain is, can you remember, the step-by-step details of a math process easily? Or do you know every scene from The Lion King? If you know every scene from The Lion King, you might be right brain. If you can remember processes step by step in that order, in that data, that's how you pick it up, right?
60. So over age 59 and a half, you can access money out of your IRAs or 401ks. They had some 403bs and tax shielded annuities. And so they thought, well, we can't get by on our pension. Our pension's only, 60% of what we were earning the last few years we taught school. And so they wanted to be responsible. They socked away money. This couple had a $250,000 at that time in yet to be taxed 403bs and 401ks. And their advisor said, well, do you need the money? Nope, we don't need the money. Oh, keep deferring. Keep putting it off until you're 70 and a half. Well, that would have hopefully doubled their $250,000 to $500,000. They were averaging about 7%. I said, no. You're just continuing to postpone. I said, let's get the money out. The tax is over and done with. Well, we don't need it. What does that have to do with it? Let's reposition it to be tax-free. So this couple, we withdrew about $60,000 a year because I showed them how much they would pay in tax if they let it continue grow tax deferred and then took out the required minimum distributions. They were shocked. If taxes never went up, they were going to pay over $250,000 in tax the rest of their life expectancy. They were, what? We're going to pay as much in tax as we currently have. I go, yep, because you're just going to string it out. Let's get it over and done with. I showed them by taking out $60,000 a year.
When has procrastination ever been a good thing? And I know a lot of us suffer from procrastination, but when has it ever been a good thing? When has putting something off into the future been a good thing? Why is putting taxes off into the future a good thing? Get it over and done when it's just a seed. Or use if you own a business and you deem that it's appropriate, have your business pay for it so that it's a business expense. And that way, if you're putting the taxes off, at least the taxes won't come due until after you're gone. But by that time, you have been able to utilize those taxes to invest in your business, buy equipment, take your family on trips, actually have the money available to spend time with them and not just working in your business 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Be able to utilize those tax savings now and then put it off to where it's taken off off of the benefit after you're gone. But by that time, you've already built a great business. You probably have other IULs going along. This is just a part of your overall strategy.
Here for 5 years. Oh yeah, we got to pay the tax. We don't have to spend the money. Let's reposition it into something tax-free from now on. Oh, that interested them. And so they paid $12,500 a year in tax over 5 years. So we lowered the tax from $250,000 down to $60,000. And then they said, do you have any other strategies? Well, in other episodes, I'm a tax strategist. And so we resurrected some deductions that they had been killing for several years, paying down their house the wrong way, paying off rental income real estate the wrong way. And we
resurrect deductions. And, this is just a broad overview. What he's talking about, what happens is when you resurrect a deduction, such as a mortgage, some people, by the time they retire, they've paid off of their mortgages, right? And thus killed one of their biggest tax credits and deductions. So what some people do as a strategy is they go ahead and put a mortgage back on the home. And based off of they have that situated, majority of that money is going toward interest anyway that they can write off. But if it's situated in the right way, you end up coming out on top, even though you paid some interest. Even though technically you're paying a mortgage interest, you're saving so much money in taxes. And so Doug says a lot of people believe that there are two types of people. People believe that there are people who pay tax interest and people who earn interest. Actually, there's a third type of person, people who pay interest, people who earn interest, and also people who understand that sometimes you have to pay a little interest to earn a lot of interest.
We were able to lower the tax from 60 down to 20,000. We did one other strategy and we eliminated the tax. We went from 250,000 in taxes down to 60, down to 20,000, down to zero after 5 years. They said, oh my heavens, we now can enjoy retirement. We tripled their net spendable retirement income, and they were able to still have $500,000 in 10 years, and it was tax-free, generating about 40 to 50,000 a year of tax-free income. We have done this many, many times. I've helped many clients save $250,000, $500,000. One couple, we saved 1.2 million. So I would encourage you to rethink your thinking. In short, is a 401k a good idea? Should you participate? No, except maybe up to a match. Reposition your savings into something that's tax-free. But if you've painted yourself into a tax corner, I want you to watch other episodes on how to strategically get that money out. If this has piqued your...
I appreciate that, Doug. I appreciate that, Doug. So basically what he did for that couple was, instead of them putting it off, delaying it, procrastinating, and ended up paying more, about the same in taxes over their life expectancy as they currently had now, he went ahead and let them go ahead and bite the bullet now. Go ahead and get it all squared away now. Go ahead and do what they call a strategic, not roll over, but roll out. Strategically pay off the taxes of today, to where now you can position the money in the perfect vehicle to where it can actually grow tax-free based off of the classification of it. Do you want something to be considered an investment, or do you want something to be considered a life policy, and to where it's legally tax-free? Don't think about what it is, think about what it does. And that is a match-funded index universal life policy. If that's something that you're interested in, reach out to me. Other than that, I'm going to be doing a lot of these reactions to Doug Andrews' information. He has a skill of simplifying things in a way that most people can understand, and then I have a skill to even simplify even the simplified, to give you a deeper understanding on that as well. If you like the and if you're listening to the audio version of this. If you're listening to the audio version of this, make sure you go to the show notes if you want to see the video version. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, but make sure you go to the show notes. I am a wealth strategist, licensed agent, Max Funded Index Universal Life specialist. Been in the insurance industry for 11 plus years. Utilize my knowledge and experience to your advantage. Look forward to talking to you soon. If you got any questions, concerns, did he get something wrong? Did I get something wrong? Did I miss anything? Let me know. And I'm also, and I already know a lot of you saying, yeah, that's a traditional 401k, but that's not the Roth 401k. The Roth 401k is much better than a traditional 401k. And I will agree, in most instances, it is much better. But is it best? Is it best? I don't know. All right, so but I'm going to go over that. I do know, but I'm going to explain that when we get to the next videos. I appreciate your time. My name is Randolph Love III. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Have a good day. Save safe.